Hello and welcome to the Voice of Iron. And on today's session, I'll be reading and ranting about the VERRILL Armored Core. First, I'll be going over the canon information that we have on the VERRILL, and then I'll be giving my personal thoughts and experiences with this armored core. Description: the 033M VERRILL is an armored core schematic that was developed by Balaam Industries. It is a member of the Melander armored core family, which includes the 011 Melander, the 012 Melander C3, the 022T Born in Mesa, and, of course, the 033 VERRILL. The VERRILL is Balaam's third iteration of the Melander armored core and is geared primarily towards heavy combat. The original Melander is a simple design with solid performance that made it suited for mass production, reflecting Balaam's strategy of overwhelming its enemies with its material superiority. The VERRILL, however, has two primary part differences, at least externally: the 033M VERRILL head and the 033M VERRILL tetrapod legs. For the head, it is a retrofitted part developed by Balaam. This high-end model is a strong performer with a hefty energy footprint, and features an intimidating spider-eye design chosen to suit the tastes of the Redgun's commander. As for the tetrapod legs, the design division was all but held at gunpoint to produce a model that satisfied the Redgun's demand for a highly mobile AC platform also capable of supporting heavy weaponry. The standard 033M VERRILL armored core schematic consists of the Melander core and Melander arms, as well as the 033M VERRILL head and legs. The primary schematic is powered by a DFGN08 San-Tai generator by Dafeng. It sports BST G2P04 boosters from Furlong Dynamics, and has an FCS G2 P05 fire control system, also from Furlong Dynamics. The most notable user of the 033M VERRILL armored core, as designed, is G1 Michigan, head of the Redguns, the official AC mercenary group of Balaam Industries. His personal armored core, Ligertail, is an 033M VERRILL chassis, sporting a Huben rotary autocannon in the right arm, a Taiyang Shou explosive thrower in the left arm, and as for back weapons, he has a BLM G2 split missile launcher from Furlong Dynamics on the right side, and on the left, a Melonite Songbirds grenade cannon. And now for my personal notes. So, having kitted out the standard, if you can call it that, 033M VERRILL and taking it out on a few sorties and arena missions, I've had some experience with this design. The VERRILL is a heavy hitter, the quad frame allowing for a much greater weapons loadout. Personally, I use the added weight benefits to bring along twin 10-tube missile launchers rather than my typical 4-tube missile launchers for lighter designs on my back, and then, as a double trigger fan, I replaced one of my two rapid-fire guns with the Huben rotary cannon on one arm for even more of a heavy hit while still being able to keep up the fire rate with a smaller, not quite as heavy rapid-fire machine. You know, that way whenever the barrel on the rotary cannon overheats, I've still got something constantly firing, assuming it's not reloading. But that's all about timing. To start off with kind of the obvious, trying this thing out against faster ACs had poor initial results. Taking it out into the arenas, I noticed that any enemies that were specifically designed for speed, especially some of the lighter things from Schneider, does not end well for this chassis, not generally. Are there ways to get around that? Sure, absolutely, but it's certainly not optimal for going after very fast enemies. That said, the hover capability of these tetrapod legs, which really is the primary thing that sets it apart from its older brother, the 011 Melander, it can be extremely useful depending on the circumstances. For instance, right, I was in a fight against a pretty powerful weapon, and it starts out on the ground, and it is devastating while down there. I mean, like, you don't want to get anywhere near this thing, it can charge you pretty quickly, and overall, it's just extremely dangerous. But I spent most of the first half of that fight almost entirely in the air, dropping only to refuel and recharge my jets, just to jump back up before it got over to me. And I was able to hover around the map and, just execute a dodge every now and then to get around any big volleys it was shooting at me. Only when I got airborne did I truly struggle, but even then, it wasn't terribly difficult to just maneuver and kind of switch back to a standard armored core mode, if you can call it that, which is to say, jumping up and boosting as needed. Furthermore, when fighting against the PCA, I learned that while speed is not a strong suit of the design, that can more than be made up for with its ability to be reckless, for lack of a better term. And with those tetrapod legs, the fact that I can adjust tactics, whether it's hovering or moving traditionally, in the middle of the fight, which causes the enemy to have to really change up their strategy as well. This might not be something that the Verrill was explicitly designed for, but I dropped on a mission where I was meant to assassinate a target, and I thought, yeah, no problem, this thing can easily kill just about anything, only to find out shortly after deploying that this mission had a stealth segment. I had to sneak around the map in order to actually get to where I needed to go to assassinate the target. Well, at first I tried sneaking around buildings, but when that didn't work, I realized that this thing's engines are pretty good. It's got some good power behind it, so I just activated my long-range booster and soared so fast that they couldn't get a clear picture of me, and I was able to get across the map. Now, was that the smartest move? No. And if it was a stealth mission based on, oh, you don't even get gleamed, I would have lost immediately. But again, those tetrapods and boosters really coming into play, because as long as I could move fast enough and far enough in the air to where they couldn't get a good confirmation of what I was, all the better for me. It ended up working out just fine. I got to my target, laid down some fire, and had no problem obliterating the target AC. Now, I can't really talk about the Verrill without at least addressing a little bit of its origin. So the Melander is, of course, the primary armored core that Balam Industries creates, and they had variants, but they didn't originally have a plan to make a heavy tetrapod variant of this thing. They were actually pressured at the corporate level to make this particular variation with the tetrapod legs and the better scanning systems on the head by the Redguns. The Redguns being Balam Industries' very own mercenary squad. And in particular, the one who pushed for it the most, it seems, especially given that he's the only one who uses it as is, so to speak, is the head of the Redgun's G1 Michigan. Now, for those of you who have gone to Rubicon, G1 Michigan is hilarious to speak to. He's got a very, sir, yes sir, military kind of mindset, and he holds himself like a military commander. He sounds almost like he wants to be a drill sergeant, but he's got a bit too much of a sense of humor to be taken too seriously. Now, that's not to say he can't be serious. He is the head of the Redguns, after all, and from what I understand, he's a veteran of the Jupiter War, a pretty hefty conflict that happened long before the events of the Coral War on Rubicon. But regardless, his machine, Ligertail, is supposedly the origin of how he got the name Hell on Four Legs. It is a devastating machine, and personally, being one to use a Huben on this frame, I can see why he wanted this kind of heft with the mobility and otherwise middle ground nature of the Melander chassis. And anyone who's fought in the arenas is probably familiar with his combat data. He is a very, very adept fighter. He's one of the few that sits in the S rank category, near the top of the list. The only one higher than him being the head of the rival mercenary group, the Vespers. And V1 Freud is a rare sight. So this guy, Michigan, who's out there doing it, this is his mech of choice and arguably a design of his choice. At his request, it was made. And I gotta thank him for that. because it really was brilliant to marry Balam's robust multi-purpose frame with the ability to adapt and change on the field and take heavier payloads. Because when I was driving the Melander itself, it was already pretty solid, let me adapt to almost anything, but now I have that hover capability, and of course, taking those more powerful weapons more than made up for the fact that I sacrificed more on my speed than anything else. I've taken this thing on missions, and if I am starting to really get desperate, I can pretty confidently charge directly up to whatever I'm trying to kill and just let them have it with almost everything. Just alpha strike directly on the target. And the second I get a stagger, I've got the mass to stay in there and keep firing even if they have allied support while I take them down. I'm not going to call it the tankiest design on Rubicon, nor will I call it the most versatile. In fact, the Melander itself is more versatile than this inherently. This is a heavier design. But I feel like it didn't lean so much into being a tank to where it is detrimental to its ability to adapt to different situations. Like I said, I reasonably did not think that this thing could be used in a stealth capacity, and yet it was able to get the job done. Not well, mind you. A dedicated stealth armored core would have certainly been more useful, but the fact that I could do it at all speaks volumes to the fact that this manages to be heavy enough to take almost any major payload, while at the same time being still adaptable like its original forebearer, to where it doesn't lose that special edge that made the Melander so useful. I like it. For those pilots out there who prefer to be heavier and yet have trouble with making a full-on tank work, I highly recommend taking out the Verrill, because in my opinion, it's the best of both worlds. Able to deploy with serious firepower, while at the same time not limiting your mobility and speed so much as to be a detriment to the standard tactics of any other armored core. Balam Industries did a great job in putting this thing together and balancing it well, and frankly, the Redguns should be applauded for coming up with the idea. Anyway, that concludes today's Reading and Rant, and thank you for listening to my voice.